Homage watches. Some people hate them, some people love them. They're usually affordable, and sometimes it's the way that a lot of people get into watch collecting. They start out with homage watches because they have shell shock when they see the sticker prices on the watches that they actually want. So some people go out and buy an homage watch to scratch the itch for the watch that they actually want. And then eventually, when they get used to the prices in watch collecting, they'll go out and actually buy the watch they originally wanted. Today, we're taking a look at an homage watch. This is an homage to Grand Seiko, which really doesn't happen all that often. It's a GMT, and it's really well made because it's made by Seestern. So let's take a look at a really affordable automatic GMT that's an homage to a very popular Grand Seiko. So a lot of people don't like homages. A lot of people will comment on this video and say that these are basically copies of the Grand Seiko versions of these watches, and I kind of agree with that. These are copies of those watches. However, they do have the Seestern logo on the dial. There are differences, big differences, between this and the Grand Seiko version. So the silver dial is an homage to the SBG J271, I believe, and then the blue dial version, I think, is a limited edition. Well, the Grand Seiko version is the SBG M251. These get, I wouldn't call them textured dials, but there are patterns on the dials that mimic the dials of those Grand Seikos. However, these are a little bit smaller. These come in at around 38 millimeters. So they're just over 38 millimeters, around 38.5 millimeters is what I measured. And you do get 100 meters of water resistance. So there's obviously some aesthetic similarities to the cases. However, the cases are very slightly different, which I guess is maybe intentional. I'm not sure. The dials are also aesthetically different. If you ever get one of these watches in hands, the original watches, the Grand Seikos, the texturing is a little bit more deep. It looks a little bit more like a textured dial rather than a dial with a pattern on it. So these are less three-dimensional. The color schemes are very similar. So this is a blue dial with some gold yellow accents. So the GMT hand, the 24-hour scale on the inner portion of the dial, those are all in a gold tone or a yellow tone. These are powered by an NH34, so it is a Seiko movement that actually powers these two watches. You have applied indices. Those are faceted. There is no lume. And then you have a minute track. Those are just dashes that go all the way around the dial. You have a date on both of these. The date at the 3 o'clock with a surround, very similar to what you would get from the Grand Seiko in look. The silver dial gets a blue accent on the GMT hand. That's really the only color on that watch. You get that same track. It's printed in black, that 24-hour track. Then you have the minute track. That's printed in black, applied indices. And then at the bottom of the dial, it just says automatic and 100 meters of water resistance, because this does get a screwed-in crown and a screwed-in case back. So you can go swimming and do basically anything with this watch on your wrist. You have Seestern GMT up at the top right below the 12 o'clock index. It also gets a domed boxed sapphire crystal. When you turn it on its side, you can definitely see that sapphire crystal, very vintage looking. Very vintage inspired case in general. The case on these were never anything very exciting from the Grand Seiko aspect here. So obviously these are pretty generic looking cases. So making an homage of them was probably pretty simple. They're not incredibly technical cases. They're more of a classic looking or a vintage looking case. The bracelet is very similar to what you would get from the Grand Seiko. Obviously, quality-wise, maybe not on par, but these are really nice bracelets, especially considering the price. You have polishing along the sides. You have polishing down these two little lines on the center link, which I'm not a huge fan of from Grand Seiko, so it's a little easier to swallow with this watch because of the price. You have drilled lugs, solid end links. You have male end links, a 47 millimeter lug to lug, which is around 40, I think it's around 49 or 50 millimeters at the bracelet, and a 12.8 millimeter thickness. That's including the boxed domed sapphire crystal, so that's actually pretty good thickness considering you're getting 100 meters of water resistance. And you can see the NH35 from the back, which I believe is a sapphire crystal. You have a double push button buckle on here, or clasp, whatever you want to call it. It is a very small clasp with very little micro adjust, so I guess they are taking a lot of cues from Grand Seiko because they don't add very much micro adjust to their watches. This, I believe, does get screwed links, which is different from Grand Seiko because currently I believe Grand Seiko on this watch offer friction pins. So that's something to mention. And then you have the S for Seestern on the crown. This has a little blue protector on it right now. On wrist today, I have a Sugis. This is a jumping hour watch that costs well under $200. This is somewhat of its own design. It has a really cool dial on it, especially considering the price. I'm really actually excited about this watch because it's a jumping hour and it's pretty cool for the price. There's the blue Seestern on my 7.5 inch wrist, the Seestern GMT. You can see it wears like a 39 millimeter watch. I think it measures in at around, it was under 39 millimeters, it's around 38 and change, 38 and a half. It's on the fence between a 38 and a 39 millimeter watch. And this is the silver white dial on my 7.5 inch wrist. Again, it's around a 47 millimeter lug span, and thickness on here is 12.8 millimeters thick. You are getting a screwed-in crown and a screwed-in case back, 100 meters of water resistance. That thickness is including that box sapphire crystal that you can see right here. Adds almost a millimeter to the thickness of this watch. So really it wears like an 11.5, 11.8 millimeter thickness. So price on these are $229. They're not very expensive, but it does make you think a little bit about why the Grand Seiko watches that these homage cost in the $7,000 range. This is a pretty nice watch and it's really nicely made, especially considering that it costs well under $300. It kind of makes you think. There are a lot of brands out there that when I first started collecting, I bought homages to specific watches that I basically aspired to own. So one of the brands that comes to mind is Greville or Givril, however you want to pronounce it. But I bought watches from them for a little while. There was a couple of them that I owned when I really couldn't afford higher end watches. And those were homages to specific watches like an Omega, a Breguet in particular that I really, really wanted. I bought those watches and those were on the more expensive side when considering that they were homages. And they were pretty much direct homages to an Omega and to a Breguet that I really, really wanted. I ended up eventually owning both of those watches, selling those Grevilles or Givrils, whatever you want to call them. And I did the same with an Edox as well. But think about that. They're sort of a gateway drug into watch collecting. So there's a lot of people who poo-poo these watches. And then there are people who are sort of on the fence about them, and then there are people who actually really enjoy them. I'm somewhere in the middle. I really don't own many homages in my collection, but I do feature them here on my channel because I do think there is an audience for them, and I do think that these are very high quality. These are good-looking watches that are well made, and they come from a brand that's basically an AliExpress brand, Seestern, but they're charging a very good price on them. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. This is not a video that I want to do to make arguments with people, but I do want to hear what you guys have to say, and I love to hear what you have to say down in the comment section below. That's really it, guys. That's the video. There is no lume on these because these are technically dress GMTs. Even though you're getting that 100 meters of water resistance, there is no lume. NH34 inside, like I was saying, automatic movement, made by Seiko, reliable. All around, really nice watches considering the price. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. Super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.